OBS?
Yeah. Do you like it?
Yes. Cool.
It is. It is. Okay, 100 gigs should be enough. And this is YouTube. Cool. Thank you.
Check, check. Oh, you're gonna go live. Of course. It's a new channel. So you're Anton? Yeah. And you're from DIFC? From Zena. Oh, yeah, and Zena. Yeah, we're here. We're in DIFC. Our office in DIFC. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everyone. 1 2 1 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome on our meetup about quality, of course. Move closer, move closer. Maybe you will ask some questions in the end or in the middle. Let's see, and it will be easier for Igor to bring you mic. Yeah, I think we're online and we're recording and we can. Yeah, we can start after I switch the sound off. How are you today? Nice, nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Oh, I switched the sound. No? Yeah, okay. Uh, Welcome on MENA Mobile Meetup number 2 about the quality. And here we will talk about the quality in mobile development. But actually not only in mobile, but in general. So, yeah. And let's get started. No. We'll have, I have to say, we'll have three speakers. Me, I'm Anton Dudakov, Vladimir Merkuryev, and Igor Kurnikov. Yeah. Three speeches about the quality. Yeah, come in. We're starting. Welcome. And first, I will be the first. Yeah. I'm Anton Dudakov. As I said, I work at Zina, and most of the time I'm mobile developer, and most of the time I am Android developer. But sometimes I do some pull requests to iOS, actually a lot last time, and sometimes from time to time I do some PRs to backend as well. Previously, I was working in Sberbank in devices department, and before Sberbank, I was working in Yandex automotive devices department. Yeah, and also I'm one of the speakers of Android Dev Podcast. It's a Russian podcast, and I'm one of the organizers of this meetup. Yeah, and what is actually Zina? Zina is actually the best payment solution that will help you to get money to your businesses from your customers, and maybe not for businesses, maybe for you as a person as well. And you know what else? We're looking for some backend star. If you know someone, or if you think you are a backend star, yeah, please come. And yeah, let's go ahead. What I will talk about today? I will talk about the reviewing the code and reviewing the code efficiently. What is efficiently? It's written here. It's with the less energy, with a good benefit for everyone. And why should we talk about the code review? There are some reasons. There are some number of reasons. And the first, everything is about happiness. It brings you happiness, code review, and overall, eventually. And when you do code review properly, you spend much less energy, and you're happy. And when you do the code review properly, you keep the good relationships with your teammates, and your colleagues are happy. And of course, when you do the code review properly, you keep the code maintainable, highly maintainable, and your future maintainers are happier, of course. And of course, the properly code review keeps your product in a good shape, and your users are happy. And yeah, this is our users. This is how they look like. Our user with an iPhone and with an Android case. Yeah, this is our user probably, and he is happy. But what is properly code review? What we can say about it? Yeah, the structure of this speech will be: first, we will talk about responsibility, just a couple words, just to understand the feelings about making code review. Then we will talk about the structure and in which order should we do a code review, and then we will talk about attention, where to pay, where not to pay, etc. And of course, the last thing that you do in code review, it's a feedback. You leave a feedback, and it's better to leave feedback properly to keep the relationships, of course, because we know our teammates should be happy. And we are, of course. And there will be one more last slide as well. Responsibility. When we talk about the responsibility, we should remember that responsibility and the cause, it's two different things. The cause, it's why something broken. And the responsibility, it's about who will fix it. And when we talk about responsibility and we talk about the pull request, the responsibility on both, on the author and on the reviewer. And if not the author, but the reviewer will fix if something is broken. This is responsibility. But at the same time, don't forget that you have a user and you're responsible for this code. You will fix it. And everything you do for user, for your user to be happy. You remember this guy who is happy, with iPhone and Android case. Okay, we got it. We understand the responsibility, and now what about the structure? The good code review, the proper code review should be properly structured. There are two approaches. The first approach is a review tool-based approach. So we open our review tool and we start just looking through the files in the order that review tool offered. And the second approach is feature-based. We open the code, we see the feature, we're looking for the entry point to the feature, and we start exploring it and see how the feature works. They are slightly different. They have their pros and cons, and let's move and talk about it. Review tool based. It's the easiest way. You need to just open your review tool and go through all the files sequentially, one by one. The good thing is you don't need to just look for the entry point, trying to find something where the feature starts. You just start reviewing everything, line by line, file by file. And you will not miss any file because you just go through them all. So it's a good thing. The bad thing about it that it's little harder to understand the code, little harder to understand the feature, how the feature works, because the feature can be split in between different files, and sometimes it's harder to understand. This feature is harder to understand, dependencies, the structure, and things like this. And this is why you can miss something. You can miss some bugs that are split between that depend on some circumstances in different files. And what about feature-based approach? Feature-based approach is a little harder. So you need to find the entry point to the feature and start going deep. But sometimes there are some files that you will go through while exploring the feature, and there are some files that you will not go through because they just some utilities files and they're not fully dependent on the feature, or the feature is not dependent on these files directly. So let's talk about both of these blocks. The first block it's easy. Well, not so easy, but it's easy to understand. You need to find the entry point, as I said, third time today. In mobile development, it might be a button, it might be a screen, or some navigation file. In Compose navigation, there's a navigation XML file. And if we talk about the iOS, as you know, there's a way to have a navigation file like storyboards, or I don't know, we don't use them, but maybe some of you use. But this also can be an entry point. And what else can help to explore the the feature, to find the way how it works. Tests can help, of course, because in tests, good written tests are describe how the feature works. And what else can help? Checking out the branch also may help to understand the dependencies, the whole architecture of the feature, and etc. etc. So sometimes it might help, but it's discussable thing. Sometimes when you have to check out the branch, maybe this pull request is too large and it's too complex. Maybe it's too hard to understand. Maybe it's too not well written code that you have to download the branch and check and go in through the code inside your IDE. It's better to understand the whole. It's good when your code is fully understandable just from pull request, but sometimes you have to. Another block, the feature independent block. It's okay. Yeah. As I said, it's some files that are not involved into the feature directly. So they indirectly, but they still changed in the pull request. It can be some different utilities files, some your helpers, some your different things that you have in the code. It's written here. Yeah, and resources. Resources are also sometimes it's easy to miss something. Sometimes it's easy to skip something. But there are some things that can be not so good in resources, like the things I described here. It's like duplicate some characters that you don't need, that you don't want to have in the code, and yeah, maybe some of resources violate your key naming convention. You have it, yeah, at least non-verbal, at least non-documented, but yeah, but you have this key naming convention. Yeah, and sometimes bitmap instead of vector instead of bitmap. Sometimes it's better to use bitmap. Sometimes it's better to use vector. So yeah, there are some best practices in it. And you know what? Many of these things are automated. So it's better to see them if it's not automated, but it's better to automate them. Don't miss it. Good things about this approach, the feature-based approach, is it's much easier to understand what is happening in the code, what this code is doing, and it's easy to understand how it works, all the dependencies, how the different blocks depend on each other, and how all the flows work, control flow, data flow. It's everything easy to understand with this approach. And this is why it's easier to catch some tricky problems in this code, tricky bugs. But at the same time, it's harder to find entry point. For example, like in this request, in this pull request, it's really hard to find an entry point. Yeah, maybe it's not the largest pull request in your life, but believe me, even in this one, it's really hard to find the entry point to the feature. And sometimes with this approach, because you don't go sequentially by files one by one, you can miss some of them. But we have a solution, of course. GitHub has perfect tool for reviewing. It has just check marks. If you reviewed the file, set a check mark, and halas, it's reviewed, and you will find all the unreviewed files. That's it. And what to choose? Which approach is better? Actually, I prefer always using feature-based approach, because yeah, it's easier to catch bugs, much easier, because you understand everything. I want to understand the code, and as I said previously about the responsibility, if you want to be responsible for the code that you review, it's much better to understand the whole flow. And the feature-based approach gives you an ability to understand it. But sometimes when it's just a small pull request, or not small, but with number of different changes in many files, like you changed some analytics events, and you have a bunch of files from different features, and it's just one line in each file that you just need to understand, is it in the correct place you send this event? Yeah, review tool based, that's perfect. I did it a couple days ago with the example I said. Yeah, and it works perfectly. Just find anything. But as I said, in most cases, I prefer using feature-based because it's much easier to catch bugs. About the attention, what we want to look at on the pull request. Yeah, we will talk about where to look at, where not to look at, and something about the something, and we'll talk about something else. Where should we want to talk? What should we pay attention? Of course, the first question should be, am I the right person to review this code? And to answer this question, you need to understand, do you understand this code? Do you know this code? Are you the code owner of this code? Can you review it? Can you understand it? Do you know this code? And if yes, you're definitely the right person. But if no, you also can be the right person to be in the pull request, because maybe you need to learn this code. Maybe you've been added because author want to share some information with you as well as with the other teammates. Some pull requests are not only to review, but also for sharing information. So probably you're the right person. The second question is, does this code works, and does this code works properly, how described in the task? Does it do the thing that we asked author to do? And some media may help. I like to add, and I like to see in pull request some screenshots from the code, or videos, or maybe compare this screenshot with Figma. Yeah, does this code coded properly? Yeah, and based on this data, and also one of the sub-questions of this, all the cases are supported in this code. So does it cover all the cases? Yeah, and tests may help here also. Does the code properly designed? So does it integrates properly into the overall project? Does it use same approaches like you use in the overall project everywhere? And does this code scalable and maintainable? And actually, does it need to be scalable? But because sometimes you have the code that need to be written fast, and that's it. And then you throw it out after a couple weeks or after a month. Maybe you don't need to scale it in future. And sometimes the code should be just work fast, and you don't want to maintain it, and you don't want to scale. You just need the fast code in one place, and that's it. And maybe you don't need to sometimes fast code, even hard to understand. But in most cases, yes, it should be scalable, of course. What else? Maybe you have some rules in your company, your code style, or maybe you have some rules that you bring through your life inside your heart. And yeah, if you talk about the company code style, of course you have it. Yeah, sure, of course you have. Don't you? And after the company code style, there should be some code style in the language or in the technology that you chose. And of course, there are some best practices in languages in Swift, in Kotlin, in Java. There are best practices, and there are some best practices in working with nullables, with some types, when to use if, when to use when. It's well documented in Kotlin. It's documented in Swift, of course. So there are some best practices. There are a couple examples. If you're not familiar with Swift, it can be very interesting for you. The last example in Swift, it's very tricky thing. For me, it was really hard to understand. But it's a best practice, of course. What else? You can base your approach on reviewing the code and what to pay attention to. You can base it on some smart books or on some articles that you like. Yeah, I like this book, Clean Code, and there are some examples where you want to pay attention about. Remove unused code. Don't keep commented out code in the code base, and don't even use comments. It's better to make your code understandable and have meaningful names and things like this. Yeah. It's just an examples from the Clean Code book. What else? It's better to pay attention to tests, because tests are also a code and they should be reviewed and they should work, of course, and they should work properly, not just written. Yeah, they should launch, and that they should have asserts, and it's better to try to understand all the cases are covered with tests or not. Yeah, and I didn't say about the code test policies. I believe you have them, about code coverage and things like this. Yeah, it's just a reminder, like your company code style, some language best practices, yeah, and books and tests, and yeah, maybe something else. We can discuss it after the presentation. Yeah, but let's move along. Yeah, and of course, as I said previously, most of these things or some of these things can be automated. Don't spend time on things that can be automated. Just spend time for automation, and then stop it. Don't spend. What else? Yeah, some common sense, like don't repeat yourself, or single responsibility on methods or classes or things like this. Some just common sense in our software engineering world. Yeah, and also it's better to pay attention to concurrency. If you have a concurrent code, you need to understand, does it have maybe race conditions issues, or maybe deadlocks. And when we talk about concurrencies and when we talk about deadlocks, you probably know these guys on the picture. If you don't, it's dining philosophers, and they have a problem. And if you don't know the problem, just Google dining philosophers problem. And after you Google it, you probably will find some solutions for them. Also, please pay attention to complexity. Does this code too complex or too complicated? Maybe you can make it a little faster, or maybe you can make it more readable, more maintainable, and things like that. So complexity, it's both for complexity about the readability and complexity in terms of performance. Documentation. Yeah, a couple slides. I remember a couple slides ago I added the point, don't use comments. But what about documentation? It's comments, but sometimes you need, if you implement, if you develop some public API or you develop some library, of course you need documentation, and it also can be automated, the documentation. But if you make something public, yeah, please add a documentation. Error handling. don't swallow errors. All right, some of them you can, but don't swallow all the errors, because please respect your user. Your user deserve to have some explanation of what is happening in the app. If user presses the button, he wants to understand what will happen then. So, and if error happens, don't swallow it. Show it to the user. Please explain user what happened and what he can do. And of course, check this on pull request. All the errors are properly handled. And last but not least, check if there's enough logs in, if is there enough information to understand what is happening in the app and how to reproduce a bug if the bug is happening. And logs and of course analytics events. Your product will say thank you for it if you remember about it. And actually, maybe it's already in the task. I don't know. It's better to have it in the task, but if not, maybe someone miss it. So, but on review, you will not miss it. And the one more thing about logs and about analytics events, please check. Is there some private data? Because there shouldn't be any private data in logs or analytics events. It's better not to have it. Some private personal data, users' data. We talked about what we want to pay attention to and when we don't want to pay. Of course, as I said, it's third time I wrote here lint it. So code style, again, third time. Just remember, lint it. Everything you can automate it, and don't spend your energy for this. Just automate one time, and that's it. The code that was generated by code generators, why it is in the repo? Is it intentional? I understand sometimes it can be intentional, but should it be? Is it the proper case when it's intentionally appear in the code? Because it's not always a good thing to have a generated code in the repo, and you don't want to spend time to generated code. It's better to spend time to code generators and to test for code generators. Review them. Don't review the code they generated. And there can be some things, some know-hows by that author of the code is invented. So when author done something new, something interesting, but it's not like it's not so usual for your project, but it's so creative. Please give the author an ability to be creative, to express himself. So why not? If these changes are not violating some your code conventions and some things in your code, why not? Maybe it's time to change something in your approaches. When it's new approach, when it's something beautiful, why not? Yeah, but in this case, you will want to give a feedback about this approach. So give it. About giving a feedback, first of all, be polite. And actually, I like this region. Here, almost everyone is polite here in this region. I like it. Yeah, and you too. Be polite, praise, and say to author something warm, something good. It's nice to take this to take this feedback. Yeah, please make a photo, of course. This is for my pull request. Not all of them. Chick. Eight. What? Okay. Yeah, it's a good slide to stuck on it. But it's better to continue. Yeah, let's try. No? It doesn't. Let's try. I tried. Yeah, it works. Yeah, yeah, I can do this.
Aren't you tired yet? Have strength? Uh, Maybe you can raise a hand if there's Android developers or iOS. So let's raise a hand who's Android. Cool. Nice. And do we have iOSers here? Cool. Anton, maybe I can be your clicker and sit down there.
How many Android developers need to fix a clicker? No? Okay. Can someone help me? Come on. Wolf, be my clicker. You need a chair? Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. If you found something, some error, it's yeah, Max, it's here. If you found some error, please describe the steps how that lead to an error, and please describe how it appears in the app, how it will appear in the app, and it's nice to suggest your own solution here, like Max did, and it's GitHub is absolutely fantastic thing. You can suggest your solution, and the author can just make a commit directly from pull review tool, just from GitHub, without open it in IDE. Next slide, please. If you completely disagree with some approach or with something, with some block of code, please describe why. Describe with the references to books, to some articles or some guides or to something. So it's good to have some references, and it's better to add a link to it. Don't leave author alone with the internet finding the approach that you referred to. And yeah, also there is some way to give something to tell about some small thing that it's that doesn't break the code, but still something wrong. It's needs, like needs, there should be a new line, needs, there is some extra line, needs, there is a please start with capital letter, and etc. etc. So nothing special, but still it's better to fix it. Yeah, and if you have a bunch of needs in the pull request, will you approve it? Will you let author just merge this pull request and without going through the whole pull request? I would say yes. I would say yes, and if it's only needs, I almost every time I'm just approving this pull request. And if not, well, it depends on on your relationships with author. If you agree to and you fully know how author of pull request will address this full feedback, if you fully agree with him and you fully agree on how it will be developed, Yeah, I also just leave in the comment like this and halas, done, approved. But if not, if you don't understand, if you know that it should be fixed, but you still don't understand how author will do it, yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you, but yeah, if you don't understand and if you want to look at the pull request again after feedback addressed, after something new implemented, it's better to not to approve at all, because for some reason unintentionally author can just land it without letting you know. And every pull request finishes with some final comment in the review. Every review finishes with some final comment. And again, be polite. If you have something to say, some warm words, something pretty, say it. Yeah, something like this. But at the same time, if you have some different emotions, not so positive, when you want something to say about the pull request and about some approach, yeah, be supportive here, and support author and help author to become better developer. Yeah, like here, polite and just perfect pull request with yeah, and there was some good example of how should I do this. Yeah, and once you left the feedback, yeah, you're done, you're polite, you're good. And of course, yeah, as I said, there's a last slide, and the last slide is about the literature, what to read. Yeah, as I said, Clean Code by Robert Martin, absolutely fantastic book. I love it. Effective something, Swift or Kotlin or Java or anything else, just Dart maybe. Yeah, just almost every language has a book about effective something. Of course, best practices. Yeah, I didn't try it here, best practice about your language, but if you're a Swift developer, you know where to read them. If you're a Kotlin developer or Java, about Java, I don't know. But if you're a Kotlin developer, you know where to read them. On JetBrains website, of course. And this QR code will take you to the Google Code Reviewers Guide. Google published there some internal description of the process of code review, how they do it, how it's better to do that. It's also interesting thing to read that helped me to understand how to do the proper code review. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you. So, are we ready to talk about it? Of course.
Please raise your hand and I will give you a mic.
Thank you. Thank you for the awesome presentation. Wanted to ask two questions. First is more concrete, and it's about... Okay, I forgot it. Okay, I'll ask the second one first. So code review is something about balance, always finding a balance between...
about what?
About balance. Like you try to balance between asking for a change and not making a person to do changes that are not relevant to the PR. Like maybe, for example, there is a problem with scalability, right? But you mentioned there is a small feature and you don't pose this question for this feature. But how do you find this balance? At what point scalability starts matter, or like this minor point starts matter? Like obviously, obvious bug is a problem, but where do you find this point where you reject the PR based on this like issues that are not directly leading to a bug?
You mean the issues or some lines of code that are not that have been brought by different pull request, not this one.
No, this PR, but there is a PR and there is a problem with it. But the problem is will not lead to a bug. It's some kind of problem like with scalability, with something. Maybe it doesn't align with architecture like 100%. But the change for this would be like will have some effort to do. Like you need to rewrite some stuff. And how do you usually find this like balance? To say, okay, here you actually need to change something, and here, okay, let's
do what?
this. Yes, let's maybe plan it.
But let's do what? Let's do what? It's the question about let's do what. Here you need to change something, and here you don't need to change it, but it's better to change it. But I don't know why, and I don't know when. So usually in cases like this, if we need to change something, let's change now. Why should we take this technical debt? Why? We don't. If there is a reason to take it, if there is no time, if we have some strong commitments, if we are in some rush mode and we have to ship as soon as possible. That's fine, to be honest. But as any debt, you need to understand when you to pay it back. If you what I usually do, I create a task or I ask the author of the pull request is create a task for you and add it to the next or screen after conference. Yeah, it works? Nice, thank you. It's the last slide, so it will not work forward. Thank you.
Okay, so to summarize, you will push for it unless there is a clear reason not to do it. And if there is a reason, you still need to create a task and like ask a person to create a task for it, right? That's your approach.
Yeah, to pay back a technical debt because you need to pay this. I wouldn't say better. Thank you for summarizing.
One last question is more concrete. So recently we have enabled resetting the approvals after new code is pushed. So for example, here, as you showed, there is a nitpicking and like you approve, but there are some comments that can be tackled, but like may not be tackled, like nitpicking, right? But if the approval will be reset after any push changes, this doesn't encourage people to actually change them, right? How do you feel about resetting the approvals after the new code, and like whether the new changes should actually be reviewed or you leave them up to the author?
Oh, it's a very good question about do we need to reset approvals after there are some new changes? It's a very good question, and I don't have some direct answer on it. I was working with the resetting approvals and I was working without it. And maybe in some teams you have to reset them, maybe sometimes, but you will not reach disability. You will not have disability like I said, like approval with nitpicks. No, we will not be able because what the matter of it? It doesn't make sense. So I prefer in my last in Zina, in Sberbank and Yandex. No, in Yandex we've been resetting it. In Sberbank we did not, and in Zina we don't reset it. So but actually in Zina we're a pretty small team. We believe each other, so that's fine. That's fine. It actually depends on the team. It depends how the team decide to do it, but I prefer not resetting it because.
Thank you.
Yeah. So somebody, you have a question?
Hi guys. I have just a small question about the pull request descriptions. So what do you think, what should we put to the descriptions? Like, should we request too much details to understand the code, even if we are maybe not the best persons? But sometimes if we are requesting too much details, we can see the conclusion that people start to avoid adding details and descriptions. So how we can find the good balance in the pull request templates?
It's a good question, and actually, creating a good pull request is another topic for the speech, because it's really hard to create a good pull request with good balance, with description, with split it to different commits or to in everything in one commit. So sometimes it's cool to review pull request commit by commit, and it's fun. And about the description, about comments, about things like this. Yeah, I usually do, and I see like some other folks are doing the thing when they just add comments in the pull review tool in GitHub pull request. They just add comments to their own pull request in the GitHub. So I did it for this, I did it for that, and I like this. I like this approach because it's easy to review it. Because and when you just scroll through the GitHub reviewing tool, you just see these comments in the pull request with the description. About the pull request at all, description in the pull request, I personally prefer having some UI in pull request, because just to understand how it look like. Because in our world, in mobile development, many pull requests are about UI, and it's good to have the UI, the screenshots in the pull request. I like to have them. And about the description, it's I don't like when it's too much written in the pull request. It's better to go and read through the task, because every pull request should be bound with the task. And if it's bound, you can just read the task and understand what should be done, and then you go through the code and see what is really done.
Thank you. I see.
Some questions?
Thank you. Hi all. Thank you for presentation. Anton, I have a small question, but probably it's a big talk. When you have a controversial opinion after, for example, create the merge request and the reviewer says that he found some bad practice and they think that it's a bad practice, but the author don't agree with it, what do you think usually use in this? So it's blocker, or okay, we go next step?
You mean in your pet project you review someone who, or
you create the merge request, I saw the code and say that, okay, this feature have a problem, and I write the polite opinion, the polite message, and share some links on the problem, which I think that it's a problem, but you don't agree with it. So with how long we make, I don't know, conversation about it, and it would be the blocker for you, or you will merge this code without my approval?
It's a good question, and you should be agree. Actually, you should be agree with the reviewer. You should be agree, and when you're not, just talk to each other, have a conversation, ask someone else, third party, who can just mitigate this problem.
Okay, thank you.
So you talked about two things. One is tool-based code review, and another is feature-based code review.
Can you repeat and closer to microphone?
One is tool-based code review. There are different tools in the market, like SonarCube is there, and
I was referring to GitHub, just GitHub, and this GitHub web tool for code review. But also I never tried to do it in Xcode. Did someone try to do reviewing the code in Xcode? No, probably not. But in Android Studio, in IntelliJ, it's built-in review tool, so you can open pull request in Android Studio, right in the Android Studio, and review the code. And there is also will be like check boxes that file is already viewed or not. But the bad thing about it that they're checked automatically. Just you open the file, yeah, checked.
So, any other questions? Okay.
So my question may be related to the pull request more than the review. So do you have like set rules for the pull request to set a minimum of approvals before merge? And that's the first question. And the second question is, do you set rule when should we review the PR? So for example, a lot of times, like in the middle of the day, hey bro, can you review my PR? As a developer, you will lose attention. Like you are focusing on your task and you need to switch. And so is there like you experienced this before, right? Like,
yeah, sure. So the first question is smaller. So actually, one reviewer should be always enough. Should be always enough. But sometimes it should be more than one reviewer, because when your project is really big and it involves different parts or different modules, and each module has a code owner, so you need to have approval for each module. And the repository can be set up like it will automatically add the code owner for some specific code, and it depends how many code owners will review tool add. But I saw pull requests when I was working in Sberbank. We've been doing a firmware for a device, and it had a lot of modules and a lot of apps. It was mono repository, and sometimes you've been changing some library that is used in, for example, 20 apps, and you have to change all the 20 apps because you just refactored some interface of this library, and you will have 20 reviewers here. You will have them, but since you changed only some interface, maybe you don't need 20 approvals because you changed not a lot. But if something else, if you changed a lot, yeah, you'll have to get. If you changed 20 apps in one pull request because they're in one mono repo, yeah, you will have 20. You'll need 20 approvals because there are different code owners. What else? But if it's one app, if it's one project, one code reviewer should be enough. And if you share the code ownership between all of you.
when should you review?
The second question. When to review it? How to manage the time? I think I have to do another speech about the developers' time management and self performance. I don't know, self time management and self energy management, because it's a big topic. It's actually sometimes it depends on you how you manage your time. When it's easier for you to review the code, when is it morning, is it evening, or you use approach with a Pomodoro timer, like when you 25 minutes you work on some feature, 5 minutes you recover, and then again and again and again, and maybe you can build your own I don't know, framework how to work on it, and maybe on Mondays you will do it on mornings, maybe on Tuesdays you will do it on evenings. So it depends how you live, how you work, how you combine your balance between work, life, and reviewing the code.
So thank you all. I think we have a little break for a few minutes to prepare for the next presentation. Thank you, Anton.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for questions. Yeah. Yeah, let's have 5 minutes break.
we're ready for the second speech. If somebody is near there, please come closer. Дзинь дзинь. Ты умеешь? Что? Это не подходит. So let's start. Please welcome our second speaker.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm really glad you guys made it today. It's like Saturday morning. It's like probably not the best time for the conference, but thank you all for coming. So from the previous talk, you might seen this like purple stamps on the slides with saying like linted, automated. So we will go and deep dive into the topic a little bit here. Yeah. But before, like few words about myself. So my name is Vladimir, and I'm Android developer in Xena. Sometimes I do backend stuff, but probably not. I'm not the best one because we're hiring. We need like another one, rockstar backend developer. So if you know someone, please let us know. So previously I was working at Yandex and Talabat. And what this talk will be about. First of all, what is linter? We will go into the definition of it. So what's this all about? The other one is why you might need to extend its standard behavior. So here I will talk mostly about my experience at Xena, about my journey. So it's like a true story. Stay tuned. Yeah, then we will go into details and how we can do that. Also, to make you guys like be more passionate about it, we will have like a little quiz, and we will draw 2 Xena shirts. Yeah, this should be fun. And yeah, conclusion and questions. So let's start. So what is a linter? So this is actually a Wikipedia definition. So it's basically a piece of software that helps your code base to keep your code base clean and even detect bugs on the early stage before even compiling your code. Sounds good to me, right? So I have a question for you. How many of you guys have already adopted any static analysis tools in your code base? Like, please raise your hands. Whoa, you guys good. And how many of you have already tried to extend this behavior, like write custom rules and everything, some kind of this? Oh man, okay. That's gonna be like tough. Probably you will know something different, but yeah. Let's get in. So now I will talk about a little bit about my Xena journey. Once I joined Xena, so Xena has like a little bit different code style. It's totally aligned with the Kotlin official code style, but from the very beginning, when you're trying to, to adopt the code style in your to be this code style on top of your fingers, you usually get this. So I had like 20 plus comments on my first pull request. This one is from Andrew, like put the new line, remove the new line, like, and this kind of stuff. So, and as Anton mentioned, it really requires some effort to write like that, to write the code like that. And moreover, it takes more effort from the reviewer to check the style guide and everything. So this seems like to be a good candidate for automation. But there could be another reasons why you might need to write a custom rule, like to extend the custom rule to extend the standard behavior of your linter, of your static analysis tool. So the first one is obvious, yeah, company specific code style. This actually our Xena case. The second one is kind of very interesting. It's like a prohibited code usage. For example, you have your own logger, right? And you want to prohibit the other developers to use it. So this is a good candidate to be automated with the linter. Also, another good case for the prohibited code usage could be like Jetpack Compose modifier. You have your own. It's like extended. You have created a new one, and you want to prohibit your standard, for example, clicker. So, on-click modifier, which is also could be valid. Yeah, and the third one is the naming convention check. So, for example, imagine you have your property that is a type of flow or like any other type or like observable. And you want your variable to be named like something observable or something flow. So this is also a good option for linter to work on. Okay, so once we decided that we probably need some static analysis tools and we probably need to create some custom rules there. So what I did in Xena? So I just went through and Google what we can adopt. So what's the tools what they have on the market? So the first one is the most obvious one is the Android lint. So this is the thing that's already embedded into Android Studio. This is the tool that actually marks up your code already there. So it probably could be the good option to extend. Another pros for the Android lint, it can be configured for both languages. It's not the case for Xena because we are 100% Kotlin, but it might be the case. This can be used for Java and Kotlin source codes like simultaneously. So you don't need to write like if you're writing your custom rule, you don't need to do it like both for Java and Kotlin. It could be done only once because it's using universal abstract syntax tree. It's like kind of a weird term, but we will jump into the details a little bit later and talk about it. Yeah, my major con for not writing the custom rules for the Android lint was that the lint API for the custom rules is not final. You saw it like with a bold in their GitHub source in the GitHub repository. So yeah, it was like for me, okay, probably I should think twice before it. My second candidate was like KTLint as a linter from the Pinterest. What they declare and what I really like about it, it's like very, very easy to use. So it's just like a jar file that you then load and you feed it like with the source code, and that's it. It's done. It's like it's already shows you the warnings and everything. What else I liked about it? It's not only the linter, it's also a formatter. So if the KTLint can format your code and can fix the errors, it will. Yeah, another good sign for me, it was like it was used by another tools like Dictat, Spotless, so everything. My only con here was that the KTLint is published only as a jar file, right? It's like, on one hand, it's a good plus, so it's just like very simple. On the other one, you need to think about how you want to include it in your project, how you want to use it. Like either write a Gradle task, either like do it on CI, any script. So you have to figure out your own. But there are lots of like third-party tools and third-party like Gradle plugins that you may use. Right? And the third one is Detect. Yeah, it's a kind of powerful tool which has like a very huge amount of config options, and moreover, it's not only checks the code style, it also goes through your code base and tries to find potential bugs. It has like potential bugs rule set, which is very amazing. Yeah, and I saw companies using it both altogether. It's like I see guys from Talabat, Detect and KTLint. You guys have it both, as far as I know. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and now I'm jumping into the iOS turf. It's not my main thing, but yeah, there is like a Swift lint for the iOS guys, which is the biggest part of it. It has like lots of configuration. It's very customizable. It even has like its special YAML declaration for the GitHub hooks. So you don't need to create your GitHub hooks to run the checks, and it's already embedded in the Xcode. So this is like a quick review that was on my plate. So before making like custom rules. So and yeah, now let's jump in and let's make our own custom rule. So what we want to automate? So that's what I told before. Before we start, a little bit like grasp of theory. So most of the linters use like a visitor pattern to let you extend their behavior. What is a visitor pattern? So it's a object-oriented paradigm that allows you to iterate or to go through the data structure without modifying it and without knowing the order. So basically your custom rule is being called every time you visit the data structure, the abstract syntax tree node that you might need to scan. Yeah, so it's like nice picture of it. So it's like the visitor is like will be a rule. Data structure is the abstract syntax tree of the source code, and the client. Client is basically a linter. So to make it more visible, so this is how it looks. So the client knows everything about like the elements of the abstract syntax tree. Visitor is your custom rule, and you've been called once you visit the element. So quite easy. So probably as you have guys guessed, I'm going through the KT-lint example. So because I will go through it once again. Xena is Kotlin only, and the KT-lint is like very, very easy to use. Yeah, it has like very easy configuration, and it's used by other tools, which can be like a good sign. So yeah, KT-lint was my choice, but you might have your own. Yeah. So, and what problem we're trying to solve here? So we want to enforce using custom logger. So we have like our own logger written by Anton. Thanks, Anton. And we have we want to prohibit using like standard Android util.log. So we don't want this, and we want that. Clear? Yeah. Cool. Moving on. So how the custom rule will look like. So what we have here. So first of all, we are extending like KT-lint abstract class, which is called rule, and it gives like us an abstract method that we have to implement, which is called visit. This is referring to the visitor pattern. So what we have then what we have. We have like an AST node. AST node is like abstract syntax tree node. What's that? It's basically an element of your source code that is so abstract syntax tree node, which is like abstract syntax tree. So it's a tree in which your source code is mapped to, right? So I will not go here into details, but yeah, you can Google it. So let's go through. So with this node, we can check the type. So we check if this type, if it's not an import directive. So we already know that it's not an import. We go next, and we don't emit any errors. If it is an import directive, we check the node property called PSI. It's basically it's a program which stands for program structure interface, which is basically code-specific properties of the node. So we know that it's an import, and we parse like PSI property into the into import directive, which has like its own like extended properties as like import path. So we check the path if it's like Android util log, we throw an error. So we throw an error, and now we're coming to the quiz. So there might be a case when this rule will not work. So it will not throw any errors, but the developer will be able to use standard Android util log. That's like, go ahead.
In the case where it is not directly imported and just used directly in the code, like Android util log dot something dot I dot call the method.
That was fast. Yeah, I guess this like shirt is going to the.
Da-da-da-da.
Yeah, basically we're not checking against like the fully qualified names. So if it's not in the import, yeah, you still can use like the Android util log. But I don't see like any reason why you should do that. So in the code base, so we just omit it. So moreover, So now we're jumping to the how we can test it. So there is a very nice extension function in the kt-lint. You can just create your rule, call lint, feed it with the valid Kotlin source code, and check if it has the error or not. So we have like an import as the first line. So yeah, and we check if the test is passing or not. So very, very easy to test. Okay, now I think we're coming to the second example. It's like from the iOS turf. So this is the example of the custom rule of the Swift lint, which is like a little bit weird for me because they don't use any like visitor patterns or something. So they just use the regexp. I have no clue why they did that. But the question is, what does this Swift lint custom rule checks for? Any regex pros here? No? Okay, so there is a button. Yeah, this is obviously a text, and there is like another text over there. So what it might be? Any guesses? Some text, some block tag, and it's in braces. What? No? Do you know Andrew? Okay, I don't know how to give a hint. It's like, it's like, yes.
Like you cannot set text to a button from the log message.
Not really. Not really. Okay. No guesses. Okay, like what log tag? Yes. No. Hmm?
So before,
No, not contain, but close.
I mean, before the log tag, we cannot accept any parentheses of any sort of like curly braces.
Getting closer, but no.
Okay.
Yes. No other guesses. Okay, I will reveal the.
You can take the T-shirt by yourself.
I have one. I have one already. We will. I mean, we'll have like questions and sections. So you will. I will give it like to someone who has like the best question. Okay, so here, what it checks for is like it checks for that the button requires a log tag. So we actually log every click on the button. So and what we want to do is to make developers do that without like any effort. So your pull request probably will fail, or like you will get the warning or the commit pre-hook warning, so you will not be able to commit. Yeah. So now we're jumping to, so now we have like our everything set up. So we have like our linter, we have like our custom rules. So probably we're good to go, but how we can run them? So I would say I can find like two major options what we can do here. Like the first one is the pre-commit hook. So every time you commit, your Git runs a script which obviously runs your linter and makes the checks. But these checks should be really fast because no one wants to wait on the commit. I mean, it's like people don't like waiting. So so it should run on the diff files. So it should run only on the change files and check if their code style is still there. And the second one is CI pipeline. So this one may take longer time because like it's not you who are waiting. I mean, who are waiting for, just like it's your like pull request checks, and it may run on the full code base. So it may check for the full code base. So the main question is why why it should be. Why do you need to run it? I think it's a good to have because code base sometimes may change. Sometimes errors may happen, and sometimes rules may hit. Like we have a rule that you need to upgrade the version of the library if there is like if there is a newer version, newer stable version. So this is really good to have on the pipeline. Yeah. So what about the conclusion? So linters are really good stuff. So it helps you to keep your code base clean. You can even adopt the custom company code style rules really fast. And you may pay attention to the more important things like writing the code, writing the logic itself. And yeah, writing the custom rule is not that hard. So just give it a try. Probably there should be any cases in your code base or in your project that you might want to automate. Yeah, and if you ask me which tool to use, I don't know. We adopted KTLint, but there's so many on the market. Lots of paid solutions, probably Sonar, whatever. It's name it. There are lots of them. So yeah. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Questions?
You already have a t-shirt. You want another one?
I just have questions. So I have two questions. The first one is about IDE integration. Because Android Lint, it is kind of native to the Android and Android Studio and has some integrations and live highlights of the issues. Does KTLint have something like that? Okay. And the second one is Android Lint, though it is a little bit heavyweight, but it has many cool features. For example, you can supply custom lint rules with your library. You're creating a library and want to restrict some behavior for this library, and you can supply lint rules with your library. Just some gets the dependency, and they get the lint rules with it. Does KTLint support something like that?
No, KTLint is quite a little bit lightweight, and it doesn't have that many features. But yeah, it's always pros and cons. So for first of all, answering your first question, no, KTLint doesn't have any IDE support here. So but the thing is it runs really fast. So it can be adopted as a TS-lint or ES-lint, if you're coming from the JS world. So basically, when you save your file, it can go run your file and give you warning or format the code because it's already formatted. Yeah, and for creating the custom rule for your library, for the usage of the library, that might be tricky. But here you also go with the dependency, right? So you probably have to. It wasn't on the slide, but for the lint, you have to use the same lint version as the Android Gradle plugin. So you're highly dependent on the Android Gradle plugin update. So you might need to change your code base. Your code base and your rules, which is, I don't know. So but it's really sophisticated and has some really cool features. So, but we went with the KTLint because it's easier and we probably don't need the custom rules for the libraries. Yeah. So
okay, get it. Thanks.
On my way.
I know I mentioned that you are Kotlin only company, but maybe you know some Flutter or Dart related tools that do the same and can be extended the same way, because we are, leaning towards that direction.
To be honest, I expected you guys hearing you. I thought you knew that. To be honest, I expected this question, but I haven't seen any Dart.
We know some, but I don't know about extending them, to be honest.
Unfortunately, no. It's we don't use Flutter here. It's
custom Dart. There is a custom Dart lint package or something similar to this. Maybe it can do the job.
No. I'm sorry, Fox. I don't know. I thought you told me that. It's I was expecting that.
Next time we did our homework. Sorry.
That would be great.
My question is quite different. There are other tools, for example, Danger, where you can also set some custom rules and you can run and check them with the pull request. So my question is that what kind of rules, what do you think, what kind of custom rules, what we need to check at compile time or in the pre-commit hooks, And what kind of rules, what would you add on the CI with the pull request by using the engine?
I don't know. To be honest, like I would say it should be like the same amount of the tools running on both, but there could be like different tools for for the static analysis. So for example, some of the tools also check the bytecode for potential bugs or for potential security vulnerabilities. So there is no other way you can. It's better to run this on CI, right? So it compiles the code, you get the bytecode, and get you the like potential bugs and potential security vulnerabilities. But if you talk about like static analysis, which does not require any compilation, so I would say it should be like exact the same amount of the rules running on the pre-commit hook or like on the CI pipeline.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Any other questions? You raise a hand? No?
Wrap up? Yeah, thank you guys. I guess
like we're over.
Oh, sorry. It's like the T-shirt I think goes to like Talabat crew. Thanks.
5 minutes break and prepare for the next speech. Please don't go too far. Are we ready to start? Let's wait for 1 minute. Okay, you're ready. Okay then. So, hello everybody. It's a big pleasure for me to be here. Thanks guys from MENA. It's a big pleasure to see all of you guys, both offline and online. My name is Igor, and we're gonna talk today about UI tests and how make them work for you. A few words about me. I'm working on Kareem Driver's Android app, and also I am one of Kaspresso's authors. I am one of the main contributors and maintainers. And also on my previous jobs, I was also working on UI tests adoption, so I have a little bit of experience to share with you guys. It would be a pleasure for me. So what exactly are we gonna talk today about is right here. So it would be pretty hardcore technical speech about Android internals and a little bit of cross-platform things at the end. So yeah, first disclaimer and actually first piece of advice that I already gonna share with you guys is please think precisely, do you really need UI tests? Because UI tests are painful, you know? You can't do this just for fun or because it's fashionable, because they cost a lot. Like it will cost you a lot to adopt them and even more to maintain. And you will gonna need a group of engineers working on it full time, and they most likely will look like this. So that's why you need to see your goal very clearly. And so most likely the goal is reducing time to market, right? So we need to deliver our releases fast and they should be reliable. And if you have some tricks to achieve that, not using UI tests, please try that first. And if you still are here, let's start. So probably if you start in the way, you will look like this. I already like this slide. Because there are a lot of approaches, a lot of tools, and it's definitely not clear what you should choose, what you should not. And we will start from basics, actually. So I believe everybody of you guys have seen this pyramid. Today we will focus on the top of it and talk about end-to-end integration tests in Android. So the very easy thing to implement actually is end-to-end tests. So basically you just get your espresso or your automator, write your test, and voila, you have end-to-end tests. The main advantage of it is that it is real. So it's to some extent it is just automated manual tests. So it's real user scenarios, but for the same reason they are very flaky and slow. They're slow because well, they are being executed on the device, not on the host JVM. And they're flaky because, well, this mechanism is quite complex and we're accessing the real network here in real server, which might be unstable. So what other options can we have here? We can replace our real server with test server, but it still be maintained. Also, we can not access real network, we can mock it. This one can be tricky, depending on your architecture. And if you have a lot of requests going on, you may face mock maintenance hell. We could automate this. We can use something like proxy server, which will act like man in the middle and work in two modes, recording your real server requests and replaying them. Also, we can go further from end-to-end tests and make UI component tests, like separate tests for a single activity or fragment or view. And also we can mock not only network, but even the Android SDK. Roboelectric allows us to do so. So these tests will be executed on the host JVM. But it comes also from starting from the version 4.0, we're able to write even UI tests using Espresso with Roboelectric. But it comes with some restrictions. So basically, we'll not have UI. There will not be ADB, UI automator, and most of all, moreover, you will not be able to jump between activities. So it can be just component tests, only for single activity or fragment. And the last thing that can be mentioned here is screenshot tests. So they can be placed here like a spectrum from end-to-end to pure integration tests, because basically you can run through your real scenarios and make screenshots, or you can maybe test your design system and make screenshots only for separate views. And other ways, you just need to check these screenshots with the reference screenshots, compare them pixel by pixel. So yeah, this is the main idea. And we say all these tests here, they are different. They cost differently, they serve for different goals. They need different infrastructure, they are different in their reliability. And it depends only to you, on your product, on your team, which of them to choose. Actually, you can mix some of them. But the main thing that they all are sharing is that they are instrumented tests. And we're going to talk about it more detailed. So first of all, why are instrumented? Well, because they're using instrumentation API. So instrumentation is the entity that lives in your app's process and serves as the communication tool between system and your application. So it's responsible for creating application, for creating your activities using reflection. It manages activities lifecycle, and also it is possible to post key events, motion events to the main thread. And the main idea here that we have instrumentation runner. So this runner is the implementation of instrumentation. Yes, so it changes the behavior of our process, and that in order to run the tests. Let's see how it does so. First of all, what happens when we click that green play button in the studio? Here comes two applications, two APKs being built and installed on the device, and they will communicate with each other during the tests. First one is your tested application. The second one is tests APK. What lives inside it? Actually, your tests that you placed in source set Android test, or Android test some built variant, or even in some dedicated Gradle model for that. Moreover, there is a class of your runner is being packed in that APK, some special activities, and of course manifest, which is being generated for us. If we take a look into this manifest, we will see the node instrumentation, and we see that our runner will be used as instrumentation. And we can see here target package. It is used for binding your tests to your APK that have been under the test. So after all these applications are installed on the device, their manifests are being merged into the global system manifest. And you can just check via this command all the instrumentation runners that are installed on the device. Here we can see that runner from our package is binded to our tested app. Okay, so probably you have noticed this command in the logs of the studio, adb shell am instrument, where it is an activity manager here, am, passing some flags test to be run in our runner. So let's take a look what does this command. It forces activity manager service, the system service, to start a process for our app. This process starts regularly, normally. Our main thread is starting to run. And first thing that it does is handling the binding of our application. So all the process configuration happens here. Here you can see how the context of our tested app is being created. And then we see this method. All the magic happens here. We can see that our tests APK is being loaded here. Then the second context is being created. So we have two contexts for both APKs, but single application class. Then we just get class loader, load us our runner, and instantiate it. It will be placed in the field of activity thread and will be used as instrumentation. Next, our runner is used to create our application. Being the instrumentation, our runner doesn't override this method in which the application is being created, but we personally can do so. If you need to, you can create custom runner and override this method, and that's how you can get control over the application is being under the test. So you can, if you have DI here, maybe Dagger, you can change or even replace your root component mock some dependencies for tests, and so on. Or even you can just use the dedicated application class for your tests. It might be helpful. And here, just maybe fun fact, you can access your runner from the test. Just that simple, you get instrumentation casted to the runner. So depending on what you're implementing, you can do so. After that, our instrumentation runner receives bundle of arguments. These arguments are actually flags from our AM instrument command. Some work happens here, and then this moment, the instrumentation thread starts. It is the second thread. All previous things took place on the main thread, and here comes the new thread on which all the tests will be executed. So our main thread lives its just regular life, and then all happens on the instrumentation thread. The JUnit is being configured. Here we have test request. It contains all the classes to be run, all the class paths to the tests in the test APK, and binding test to runner. Wait, what? Again, runner? It might be confusing. I already told that naming is the hardest thing in the programming. Yeah, you probably used annotation run with, and here you can see that runner, Android JUnit 4. It is the plain JUnit thing. It is responsible for using reflection for creating our test, finding our rules, finding methods annotated with annotation test, and executing them. So yeah, one single runner is used to run one single test. After that, we have run listeners being set in JUnit. Yeah, so run listener is also a plain JUnit thing. It is being notified by JUnit on when all test runs started or finished, or when each test is started or finished or failed. And the description, it's something like metadata of tests, is being provided to us. Yeah, it contains all the annotations, all the class names, method names, so some meta information that can be used for example, for reporting. Yeah, you actually can create your own run listeners, and you can implement, for example, thing for reporting about your tests run. We will return to this later. Yeah, here is 4 ways how to add your custom run listeners. You can just pass it to the command. You can add it to the test APK manifest. Also, you can use instrumentation runner for that, because here in arguments model we get under the field listener we get the string of all system runners, comma separated, and we can add just our custom runner listener class name to it, or we can use that JUnit for runner. Actually, this way is more flexible, because you can run different tests with different runners, and different run listeners can be set. So if you need this flexibility, you can achieve that. And after that, when JUnit is configured, tests are started. They've been executed sequentially, one by one, inside one thread. They launch the needed activities, communicate with it, pass some k-events, motion events to the main thread. Then the activity is closed, the next test starts, again the new activity is launched, and so on. And after all the tests are finished, Activity Manager service just kills our process. So how exactly our tests communicate with app? Some magic is going there. Probably you used activity scenario rule or activity test rule that is deprecated now. They both are implementations of the JUnit interface test rule, which is also being notified when the test starts and finishes. And yeah, here you can see we're just starting activity using some tool called activity scenario. It is pretty interesting thing. It uses an abstraction called activity invoker that is able to open your activities in a new process. It is done for the safety's sake. It just uses our tested APK context to start the activity. It uses bootstrap activity to start the target activity. And when your test finishes, bootstrap activity just sends a broadcast to our host process and finishes itself. Also, activity scenario can help us with some other things. We can just move our activity to some state created, resumed, and so on, or even just recreated and verify how our activity restores the state. But personally, I have never used this. But I used this one on activity. It is interesting because, as you remember, we're now on the instrumentation thread, and if we need to do something with application UI, you can do so, right? So you need to be on the main thread. And this one posts your action to the main thread. Why it can be useful? If you need to use, if you need to create some component tests. So what approach is used here? We can use some blank empty activity and set some views, remote views or fragments just from the test. So you will be able to test your components in separation. Here we can see we're accessing our scenario. Here we are on the main thread. So it is safe to create, to inflate the view and just add to the view hierarchy. And yeah, you can normally access it from the test. And actually, this trick with the fragment is recently implemented by Google. And now we have fragment scenario. Actually, it works in two ways. You can launch your fragment without any UI. And the second way is, as I said, it launches the fragment in the blank activity. So we can use it. So how our buttons are being clicked? What that magic is going there? For example, we have Espresso library. It is white box testing tool provided by Google. White box, it means that this thing knows a lot about our app's internals. For example, it has access to its error class. It lives in our process, in our instrumentation thread actually, and it posts its actions and assertions to the main thread. And the main thing that these actions are being executed only when main thread is ready for that. So when it waits for users' input, when there is no pending messages, where it is idling. Okay, so how it happens? Espresso uses a low-level API called UI controller. Actually, it is possible to post our clicks, swipes, touches into the main thread. It's our motion events, k-events. And it is possible to loop our main thread until it's idle. So it is implemented using some empty signal messages that notify us when they are called, we're in idle. Yes, so personally, as a user, we use more high-level API called view interaction. We post our view assertion. The new callable is being created, posted on the main thread executor. And once it is called, we loop the main thread and then perform our assertion. So this approach makes Espresso tests way more stable than, for example, UI Automator. This thing works in a different way. It is a very powerful thing. Actually, it is a tool for black box testing. It means that you don't need to access any app's internals. You don't need to know anything about the test. And that's why you can access even system applications or just different applications and click buttons in it just using UI Automator. So how is it possible? UI Automator uses Accessibility API. We have Accessibility Manager service, which lives in its own process, and it just uses binary PC to gather all the information about any screen displayed on your device. It stores its own virtual tree of components, and UI Automator has an access to its tree. It can check all the nodes and even pass some actions to it. Okay, so if you want to test some service, we have servers test rule for that. It works both with started services, bound services. For content provider, we have provider test rule. Yeah, just read the documentation. I just notify that you have the ability to do so. And what if we need to do something special with the system or with the device? To do something that needs ADB, right? Because what's the trick here? ADB is debug bridge from our host machine to the device, and we're now in the device. But actually we can do so. We can call ADB shell. We can use UI Automator for this. or just plain Java process builder. But here's the trick. You can't use ADB emo here. So it is not possible to make a call or set geolocation or something like that. This command should be called from the outside of our device. Here's the first problem. And there are a lot of more. Espresso works badly with asynchronous UI. So if you're waiting for some backend response to show some view, Espresso won't wait out of the box. So it just will fail your tests. Google says that you can use idle resources for that. I would say no. It is not very comfortable. You need to implement a separate class for each asynchronous operation, and you need to store this test code inside your product code, which is weird. And also it contains some problems which may lead to race conditions. So we need some other tool. And also it will not save us from flakiness. Espresso is also flaky. If you click one button 100 times, one of its 100, it will just fail somehow for some reason. Also, there are a lot of problems with UI Automator. It works badly with custom views because if they are not implemented properly, they might be invisible for accessibility. Also, it works badly with asynchronous things because it's for each action, for each your click, it waits up to 10 seconds for the 500 milliseconds window when there will be no messages in the main thread. So it makes your tests very slow. And in some cases, for example, some animations or video playback, it may just freeze forever or fail your tests. And also, tests will fail. They will fail not only because they are badly, just because they do the thing which they should do. If you have some problems in your application, tests should fail. And we need really rich test reports to understand what is the problem. Standard reports are not so rich. Also, there's a problem with Espresso's dump view hierarchy log. It's just painful to find the cause of the problem. And remember, I said about run listeners. We can use that. We can use this thing to structurize metadata of the tests, store it on disk, and use somehow for HTML report generation. But you even don't do so, don't need to do so because you have Allure. It is the open source tool for creating good-looking reports. But here's the one thing, you need to provide some data to it, right? So metadata about our tests is not enough. We need logs, we need screenshots, and videos also would be great. So yeah, it would be better to have some history, what button on what screen, on what step was clicked, and what was the cause of the problem. Also, Espresso and UI Automator has not very convenient API. Also, with a release of Compose, we have the third tool. It looks like Espresso, but it is not Espresso. Yeah, we need to solve this. Actually, for Espresso and Compose, we have Kakao. It is also open source library. It provides some syntax sugar for you. It forces you to use the pattern called page object. So basically, it is the screen, representation of the screen that you are using, that you are seeing. It should be stateless. Yeah, so we just write our screen like this, and we can access it from the test. Actually, it looks much more pretty. And still, UI Automator is not wrapped. We need to agree about the patterns and code styles and all the things that we use, because otherwise, your team will look like this. I will explain. We have a proverb in English called invent your own wheel, but in Russian it is invent your own bicycle. So I give you 100%, all your team will be riding all kinds of bicycles. And here's the solution. Just a little bit of advertising. It is a cool tool called Espresso. It combines a lot of things that will help you, will just save you time. Yeah, it provides Kakao DSL. I won't read this. I will just show the simple tests using Espresso. It will Yeah, it is. Also, one thing that should be mentioned here is we provide ADB server. So it is the jar file that is being set on your host machine, and you can ask it from the test to execute some ADB command for you, even ADB ammo. This is very powerful thing. And also we have steps DSL, which does a lot under the hood. It uses the main feature, I guess, interceptors for creating logs, screenshots, videos, retries, auto scroll, all kinds of things that will help you to make your tests more reliable. And also it works well with Allure. It can be customized. You can write roboelectric tests using Espresso, and so on. And at the end of the presentation, I will show you some video just for fun, how it works. So, seems like all our problems are gone. You're wrong. We need to run our tests. And it's also the problem, because here you can see our tests are being executed one by one, sequentially. And this means if one test crashes our process, the following tests won't be executed. Also, they can share some state. If some tests, for example, authorizes the app, the second cannot expect the application to be in the authorized state. Yeah, the tests can share some state in the memory or the static, and this all lead to flakiness. So what can we do here? We can use ADB shell command, but here's the trick, it kills our process. We can't do this from the test, but we need to clear data. How can we achieve so? The naive solution is just to write a bash script, right? And to run our tests just one by one in its own processes and clear the state after each other. What can be the problem? Actually, there are no, it will work. And moreover, this logic is implemented by Google in its solution called Orchestrator. So it is another APK that you've been installed on your device, and it does pretty the same logic. It uses the fourth application as a ADB proxy to call the ADB commands, but it does this thing. If you set the flag clear package data, it will also clear all the data between your tests. But here's another trick, because this operation is quite expensive. It forces our app to be started in cold regime, cold starts, and for some products it might be very long. It might take 10 seconds, 20 seconds. So maybe the good compromise is to batch your tests in some group and let them share the state within the same process. So not large, single test and single process, but launch some group of them. And also the standard tool doesn't give us optimal sharding, because it may lead to some devices idling. It's suboptimal. We also need to retry some failed tests, not all the whole test run, just single tests. We need some statistics to monitor flaky tests. Long story short, we have a tool, open source tool, that will do all these things for us. It is the test runner called Marathon. It can be used like Gradle plugin, or it has command line client. So it can be flexibly configured using YAML file. It has a lot of retry strategies, batching strategies, all things that you can see here. And it works both for iOS and Android. And it can work with real devices and emulators. But the main thing that you will need your in-house infra. So this might be not very fast to implement, but it is a very powerful thing. A lot of companies use it. So my advice to you. But if you need some quick solution, you can use Flunk. It is a runner provided by Google. It also is a cool thing, but it is paid. It works with Firebase Taste Lab. So yeah, it may work in your case if you're just starting and you want to see some fast results, or there are not so much tests to be run. It can work for you. The last thing, we should decide which should we use to run tests. These both runners work with real devices and emulators. What should we choose? So real devices, well, they're real. They can highlight some vendor problems. They don't consume your CI resources, but it's also painful because they're not reliable. There can be some network issues. There can be system dialogues will ruin your tests. And just its disk, memory, GPU is not that reusable as your host machines, right? So they will go out of service very fast. And you will need to maintain a farm of these devices. Probably you will need storage with climate control, because I personally seen how batteries inflated because of too much using. And the second option is emulators. Actually, they're faster. Let me explain. They're faster because it's easy to keep them fresh. For example, if you'll take a fresh real device, an emulator, the test will be executed faster on the real device. But in real life, it isn't possible to have fresh device for each test, right? And so emulators win this race in real life. Also, they can be configurable because most likely you don't need sensors, gyroscope, audio input. You don't need this for tests, right? Also, you can reduce the resolution to some small values. It might have some speed up for you. And also, emulators can be launched in headless mode. It means that you will have no UI, right? It sounds like weird, but it is possible to have UI tests without UI, because your views, well, they will have only out passes, on measure passes, but there will be no on draw, and you still can verify the UI. Also, it consumes resources, but the great thing about emulators is that you can use Docker for it, and it will just simplify your life a lot. It's easy to start them, to kill them, to connect to some runners, and so on. So yeah, there are a lot of images you can use. And yeah, finally, we came to conclusion. Like a conclusion, I would show you some video. Here we have some runner that builds our test APK. Testing APK installs it on the device. Tests are written with Caspresso. We have some strange flaky screen here. It has a list with views that just randomly change their text. Espresso test will fail here already. Caspresso survives. Then we making some text input here and checking if our activity restores the state after the rotation change. ADB command is used here. We use ADB server. Then it is still inside the test. We go to the browser. Inside the test, we open the Caspresso GitHub page, and then we can even return to our application. And we will make a call and receive an SMS via the test. It is also implemented using ADB server. Here it is. And so our test passes, as we can see here, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Then our script pulls all the files that are stored on the device, because we recorded logs, screenshots, videos, and we call alert to generate a report for us. Here we can see the alert report, how it looks. Our test passes. We have all the steps, all is readable. We can see screenshots binned to each step. We have a log for our test run. We can see what button on which screen is clicked. And also we can see the video report here. So, yeah, thank you. It is a good note to stop, actually. How can I stop? Yeah, we can discuss it later. Thank you for your attention. Yeah, so maybe you have just a few words, okay. Please remember that your tests will always be flaky. It is the sad thing, but the great thing that you can reduce this flaky rate to some accepted value that they will work for you. You can't avoid manual tests because there always will be unpredictable things that can be catched only by human eye. And actually there are some scenarios that are too expensive to be automated. Also, it is the must. Your tests should be a part of your CI. So they should be run very often, like continuously. It will not work at all if they were launched only locally. So nightly builds, nightly runs, PR checks, release, of course. Yeah, and think about this as a long-term investment. In the long-term distance, it can reduce your release cycle, and that's all. Finally.
Thank you for the awesome talk. It was really, really insightful. You mentioned there are a lot of reasons why tests may be flaky, and I want to ask about one of them, like the async operations that are happening in background. And you mentioned that there is what's it called, idling resources, right? And to not use them. There are other approaches like waiting until something appears on the screen. Do you have some other suggestions on what works best in your experience, like for handling this flakiness caused by asynchronous stuff?
Sure. Yeah. I will share one thing that is implemented actually in Caspresso, and we use this pattern from guys from Avito. They teach us so. Actually, we can. In simple words, we can use just thread sleep, right? So not just thread sleep, but in Caspresso there are some more interesting implementation. But the idea, let's say, it's thread sleep because all the tests are being launched in the instrumentation thread, right? And we need the instrumentation thread to stop, while the main thread will just run. And we can implement something like cycle. We can try to click the button, catch the error, wait for some time, and try another time. Yeah. So.
Essentially just waiting until something is available and try until it is, right? It's as simple as that, without any idling resources, any actually marking stuff that it's ready, just waiting. And this is most effective way, right?
I'm not sure it's most effective, but it works actually. You can set 1 second for waiting and try another time. So it doesn't cost actually a lot. You even don't need to synchronize your threads. You just try now, try again. Yeah, it works.
Thank you.
So what is the threshold for this? How many tries should be for test to fail?
Yeah, actually it's up to you. So we have some default settings in Caspresso, but you can customize it. By default, it checks twice a second and waits, for example, for 3 seconds for each click. But you can, actually, in the test code, you can force for some action to be retried for more times or less times. So it's up to you. There are some default implementation, you can change it. Yeah, by the way, about Caspresso, if you start in a test adoption, it will save you a lot of time. But if you already have a lot of Espresso tests and you're not planning to migrate, you can go and check the repo, and maybe you'll find something interesting, some approaches. For example, you can use ADB server. It can be used in separation. So, yeah.
Hi, Gor. Thank you for a pitch. Probably you have a big experience in UI testing and helping the teams to start UI testing in their products. Imagine if I'm, for example, engineering manager and I have an Instagram application. I go to you and say, Igor, I don't have UI test at all. How much time, how much resource I need to investigate, and when I will receive something good for me with this result? What do you think about it?
Actually, it depends, of course, on your application, because I worked in AliExpress and we had a lot of legacy, Chinese legacy, no documentation at all. And there were problems on each step. So it took, I don't know, half of a year to start. And for example, in Kareem, the code is better maintained. So actually, we don't need Caspresso. There are some wrappers over Espresso, and it works. We have thousands of tests. They're running, and they're helping us. So first of all, we need to look into the application. So how much manual testers do you have? How much your release cycle is how much time it takes. Maybe it's work for you if you have, I don't know, 3 hours to run all the regress. I will say you don't need UI tests. And actually, in Yandex, it is a big company. It's like Russian Google, and we had very interesting thing. There was accessors testing. So basically, we have our test plan, and these tests are being applied to some users that are connected to some program, and they will act like testers, but they outsource. And each test is applied to 3 different persons, so we can cross-validate it, and it works. So we use them like automators, like devices. It will. You will need to pay them, but you will need to pay in all cases to Google for Flunk, to your engineers in your in-house infra, or so on. So, to ask one word, it depends. 2 words.
Okay, thank you.
In a large code base, it could become a problem to run tests because your test use grows and grows and grows, and at some moment it will take like 1 hour to run all the instrumentation tests. They could fail, and then you need to wait another hour. So what are the ways to optimize test running performance and test running time?
Actually, you probably don't need to run all the tests for each pull request. For example, I will share some idea. We can run all the tests only at night builds, and we can validate which tests are flaky and which are trusted. We can, let's say, take 300 tests, which are 10 out of 10 green, and use them on the daily PRs as the blocker. So it will reduce the time of your tests run. It will increase the stability. And yes, so the whole test run should be used on the nightly builds, or maybe for release candidates tests. There is some approach. So yeah, it's just multi-complex system, and you design it for your needs, depending on your goals, depending on your how much resources do you have. Yes, probably you can add more machines and parallelize your tests better, use Dockers, Kubernetes, and just optimize all this stuff. Or you can, just reduce tests amount.
There's some insight from a mono repo in Yandex and in Sberbank in Sber devices. We had a mono repo with a lot of apps and different tests, and it's good to set this up, like run the tests only for the code that has been changed. It's on pull request. Yeah.
So I want to ask about concurrency of tests. Like, do you run multiple test cases within each startup and teardown? Because as you see, you clear the storage, shared preferences, stuff like that. So do you run multiple test cases concurrently, or do you run a separate Docker image as you showed us Docker for each test case and let it run separately?
You can run test cases concurrently inside one device, so we can run them concurrently on different devices, right? Inside each process, they are run sequentially. It's GUnit is designed so. And you can. It depends on how much resources, again, do you have. If you run each test in its own instrumentation instance and clear all the data after each test, this will increase the waiting between tests. It might be, it will take some time. You can group them by 3, by 5, or depending on you, to run in the single instrumentation thread. So we open the app, 3 tests, and we clear it. So it's just empirically can be figured out which batch, you can have here.
And the Marathon API, it's like, I saw it being used in CI/CD scenarios. It's like process hatchery or something like this.
It is the jar file that is hosted on your CI machine, and it runs the tests. So it needs the devices to be connected to it, just via the IDB. It doesn't know about is it real device or what. So you can provide like Docker images or using just scripts, using AVD manager. And Marathon runs this orchestration by itself. So for example, if you have some failed test, it will, if it's possible, it will try to retry it on the next device to exclude the device problem. Yeah, so pretty like it does all for you.
Thank you.
Hello. Sorry, I'm not a mobile developer, so the question might be silly. So whenever we are building tests for mobile, so let's say if your sorry, if your application is mostly a real-time events-based application, for example, Messenger or Slack. So how do you plan your test cases for mobile? Because everything actually comes from server through WebSocket. So you might have text messages coming up, images or PDF. So it's always like based on some other actions, then you basically reflect on your application.
So the question is how to emulate the real server communication?
Yeah, so
yes,
all of the like a new messages comes in or video comes in or files comes in. So everything is basically you are waiting for some events to happen, only then like you can show something on this application UI. So how does like you approach this thing to be like make the application testable?
Yeah, for chat application, I would say there is no way for end-to-end tests. Basically, it is crazy to synchronize two applications to communicate with each other. So I probably would say you need to mock your server, use this dedicated server, or use some mocks inside your apps and to maintain this. So it shouldn't be. It is impossible to make it real, right? So
yeah, then then we will also have to need one backend developer who actually maintains a mock server only for the cases.
You can, for example, you can use Sniffer. You run this test when you're developing tests locally. You send requests, catch it by Charles, for example, or Wiremock, or Wireshark, or whatever. You take this JSON, put it into the in the repo, and you need a tool to return it to you. Or you can use, for example, there was, it will take too much to return to the start. There are tools called Wiremock, Catbird, OcReplay. It is proxy servers that will act like a man in the middle. So you just set it on the CI, and they will proxy all your calls to your real server. They will record automatically all the requests and replay them to you. Yeah, so if there are some hell with mock maintenance, you can automate it. But yeah, all of this stuff, it will be a tough technical task. You need to investigate.
Okay, thank you.
How do you actually decide when you need UI tests and when they can be replaced by integration tests of different, like let's say with mocked API layer? When do you actually go for this expensive option that is flaky and that's unreliable?
I think the easiest response is when your regression testing of your release candidate takes too much and you're not satisfied. So when your project code base grows, I guess the manual testers that are needed to test it grows exponentially. So sometimes you don't have place enough to sit all of them. So you need to automate some things. So for example, in Kaspersky, we had the release cycle. We released like 1 in 3 months, and we had feature freezes, and that's why we needed to migrate to 1 in 2 weeks releases or 1 week releases. And then you need UI tests. Yeah, it is, you need to investigate. You will take half of a year or maybe a year to fully build it.
Do you think some of them can be replaced with integration tests? And if yes, what is the probable criteria?
I will just reference you to the standard pyramid of testing. So first of all, you need unit tests, some integration tests, maybe for using Roboelectric, it will be faster, and for your repositories, for your view models, and all this stuff. I'm not sure actually, does view model need to be tested in unit tests? It's also discussable. So yeah, UI tests is the last part. It is last thing that you should think about. If you, first of all, you need, it is used, it gives a lot of results when it is inside of a process. So first of all, you need to make a process starting from unit tests, for example. You need to force the developers to write tests and not to disable them because they're hurrying and this release is very important. We will, yeah, so first of all, the process should be built and then you can think about your tests.
Thank you.
Hope you're not sleeping yet.
No, it was really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming, for listening, for asking questions. Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you, speakers, Vlad, Igor. Thank you for speaking today. Yeah, and that was MENA Mobile Meetup number 2. It's not regular one, not regular meetup, but yeah, let's see. Stay tuned. Subscribe to our meetup.com page. Yeah, and
let's thank Anthony for gathering all us here.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, stay tuned and follow us. Yeah, thank you for coming.